Welcome to the Big Screen Symposium podcast. The Big Screen Symposium was held in Auckland at the Victory Events Centre on the 5th and 6th of April 2024. This panel discussion, called The Spirit of Coopetition, covers how and why the New Zealand regional film offices work together to facilitate screen content in their regions and what lessons can be learnt from this collaboration. Led by moderator Jaclyn Philpott from the Association of Film Commissioners International, the panellists were Petrina D'Rozario from Screen CanterburyNZ, Mark Westerby from Screen Wellington, Kahli Scott from Film Queenstown Lakes, and Jade from Film Bay of Plenty.
So today we're going to discuss how and why the regional film offices work together and what lessons can be learnt about the collaboration and what exactly does a well-functioning screen industry look like from north to south. So AFCI, some of you may not know AFCI even exists, but we were founded in the United States in 1975, so we're nearly 50. We are classified as a 501c3 not-profit, so that is for the purposes of education and professional development. So we have a global membership of film commissions, film liaisons, and some affiliates of around 300, and the organisation's been growing steadily. Our core membership has always been film commissions or film liaison offices, everywhere from Alabama to Zagreb, from Auckland to Western Norway, from Amsterdam through to Texas. We're on 6 continents, so if anyone wants to open in Antarctica, we could say that we're on every continent. Not sure how that would go. Not sure if we should be filming there. We are the only professional organisation globally that is training film commissions and film commissioners. Some very random facts I can share with you. We did a survey last year, not long after I got on board, to all of our film commission members. Some very, very interesting data coming through there that the regional film offices have access to. We've got members in 56 countries. 7 offices have been around for over 50 years. 58% of our members are part of a larger government agency. 50% offer incentives, 50% don't, and 57% of our staff have, 57% of our members have staff of less than 10 people. Some have upwards of 30. So there's a real difference in the types of structures and the way things work across the world. So from an AFCI perspective, our key activities are education, connection through events, which is online and in person, advocacy and knowledge sharing. So as I mentioned, I moved from LA last January to take on the role of Executive Director, and we've undergone a significant strategic project in the last 12, 14 months to develop our new strategy to make AFCI a more significant and dynamic member of the industry worldwide. We have a huge amount of work coming up. We've just applied for a $1.2 million grant from Bloomberg Philanthropies. So we understand that being a digital-first environment is really what's going to help with collaboration and promotion of the regions worldwide. And we're bringing in new members into the organisation. So there's always been an opportunity to have what we've called affiliates, which is a private sector for-profit business that enables productions. That could be infrastructure or a studio. But also we're welcoming in now from September this year, independent producers, independent studios, and major studios are coming on board as official members from now on. So that means we're developing a whole range of new products, but all with the point of bringing those people closer to film commissions, closer to regions. So a huge amount of movement for us, which is really, really exciting. We have an advisory board made up of major and independent studios, plus independent producers and private sector businesses. And we have a board of 11 film commissions members globally. We've got Philippa here from New Zealand, and we also have Stefan from Dunedin, so we've got 3 New Zealand representatives at AFCI, which is fantastic. I think any more people would probably give us the side eye. The project we undertook last year does mean we're in transformation mode. So we have growing pains, just like many of you do, with the changing ways of the film industry landscape at the moment. Prior to AFCI, I spent 8 years at Jade and Auckland Unlimited, where Screen Auckland was one of my portfolios. So I've seen some very familiar faces here. Right, enough about me and AFCI. Let's get on with it. So onto our panel. Kahli, can you provide an overview of RFONZ, its vision, and how you as individual officers work together?
Yeah, so kia ora koutou. Ko Kahli Scott, toka ingoa. So as well as managing Film Queenstown Lakes and Film Otago Southland, I am the current chair of RFONZ. Fun fact, I was talking to a man named KJ Jennings, who many of you might know. He used to run my film office before I did. He's been around for years, and he said that RFONZ originally became a formal network inspired by the AFCI. I didn't realise that, recognising the importance of bringing together film officers and film commissions in this unique space that we sit in. So very relevant to have Jaclyn here today moderating the panel. So RFONZ is informal collaboration between the 12 regional film offices around the country. So we're not an incorporated society or a not-for-profit trust. You don't pay to be a member of RFONZ. We're really a collaboration, an alliance, and an agreement between the regional film offices that we should and do work together. We are governed by an MOU, which we revisit every year at our annual hui. And we've established over the last year that the three main areas that we are all kind of working in a similar way towards, so it makes sense for us to work together on, fit into production attraction, sector development, and production facilitation / location access. So we've recently split into 3 different working groups within the network that we're going to be focusing on those areas a bit more specifically. In terms of how we collaborate, we meet online every month to share information, ideas, challenges, updates. We have our annual hui once every year, which I also mentioned, which is held in a different regional around the country, which is a great chance for us to get out and explore regions we might not have been to, and to showcase the great work that's happening in the regions. We have a shared booth at events like this, so we collaborate on events like this as well. And then just case by case, if there's something within the network that we know, I know, Canterbury's dealt with this before, Bay of Plenty have dealt with this before, we can pick up the phone and talk to each other. So it's just activating that network really and figuring out the ways we can work best together because we're all working towards the same thing at the end of the day.
Great, thanks, Kahli. So with the 12 different members, you're obviously all different structures, potentially in who you're reporting into. So Mark, can you give us a bit more insight around the different structures of the various RFOs, or perhaps each of you could talk about the different structures of your offices?
Yeah, sure. Kia ora koutou, Screen whanau. Mark Westerby, I'm the head of attraction at Screen Wellington, and fantastic to be involved in this group where we do collaborate. We all, yes, have been founded by different reasons and different structures. So Screen Wellington, for example, is part of an economic development agency called Wellington NZ, primarily tasked with the facilitation of attraction and room nights and tourism into the Wellington region. But we have a number of functions. Obviously, we've got the regulatory function with Screen Wellington in terms of permitting. And then, like Kahli was saying, we also look at attraction and professional development. And we sit within, we have 8 councils that within our remit that we talk to all the time about the work that we do with them, from permitting to infrastructure to attraction. And then we also are funded actually primarily by Wellington City Council and the Wellington Regional Council. So our funding comes from those portals. And it's always a bit tricky, I think, sometimes with the funding, because the funding is often it's not tagged, but it comes from a certain area. So, we have to think about the way we apply that funding, that level of funding that we get, and what it goes towards. And that's for all of Wellington NZ, not just for Screen Wellington. Obviously, it gets carved up in that manner. So that's how we work. I don't know whether you want to speak to how your offices work as well.
Yeah, Jade.
Good afternoon, my turn. Kia ora koutou. My name's Jade with Film Bay of Plenty. So ours is slightly different. We sit outside of council. We're funded by 7 different councils and community funders. So our community funders we have to apply to every year. I write a lot of funding. And we're currently in our LTP process for our next financial year. So going back to all of our councils, which we're pretty much... They've got a baseline, and then if we're wanting any extra, then we have to go and present and make a new case for what we would like to that. Sitting outside of the councils gives us, there's pros and cons. It gives us a little bit more freedom, but we also, in some ways, I guess, but we are also always looking for funding. But then we can apply to, I'm not sure if you guys can do that, but the Screen Rights Cultural Fund and those types of things, we're able to, and go to our community funders because we're a non-for-profit, where we can, if it aligns with what they're doing, we can make a case to put that forward, whether it's for a project or if it's for operational funding. So that's it.
Right. Thanks, Jade. Kahli.
I'm fortunate enough to kind of have the best of both worlds. So I'm directly employed by my local council, Queenstown Lakes District Council, and through that I'm employed to run Film Queenstown Lakes, which is an in-council film office. That's because our economic development unit in my district sits within our council. We don't have an external economic development agency at the moment. But then we've got Film Otago Southland, which is a regional not-for-profit trust which wraps around the whole of the Otago Southland region. And I co-manage that alongside my colleague in Film Dunedin, which is a council film office for Dunedin, Stefan Royce, who was mentioned earlier. He's on the AFCI board. So we work together to run the Film Otago Southland Trust, which is a not-for-profit trust funded by the council. So I get to see the pros and cons of being within a council structure, but then also having a little bit of freedom within the Film Otago Southland Trust for activities that might not fit within a normal council remit.
Thanks, Kahli. Petrina.
So Screen CanterburyNZ is very similar to the Screen Wellington structure. So we are the Economic Development Agency. We sit within the Economic Development Agency called Christchurch NZ, and our funding comes through Christchurch City Council. But we take care of the entire region of Canterbury, which is the 11 districts. So similar to keeping in contact with them, building great relationships with them, and always, being the conduit between inquiries that come into us to help line producers go to their regions. We have 2 FTEs, so Helen and I are part of the Screen office. But unlike Screen Wellington, we take care of the inquiries, but the permitting sits within the Christchurch City Council, and we have our regular meetings with them just to get engaged with sometimes inquiries that go to them directly for locations that may not have come to us. So that there's a split in work for our office. Yeah.
Great, thank you. We'll talk a little bit more about services in a second, but Kahli, I just wanted to go back to you. I understand RFONZ has an MOU with the New Zealand Film Commission, so it'd be great to understand how you work with the New Zealand Film Commission and how your services differ.
Yeah, so I could see some of our Film Commission friends in the crowd there, and Philippa spoke to this in your session yesterday as well. So we do have an MOU with the Film Commission that we've had for many years. They're one of our key partners in the work that we do. So one of the main teams within the Commission that we've worked really closely with over the years is the International Attractions team. When they're pitching New Zealand as a country to international productions, they represent the regions as well. So we arm them with our regional toolkits, be that our location libraries, our crew lists, all that information to help give that NZ Inc. package. But over the years, especially the recent years, we've been working a lot more with the talent development team as well. We all have an interest in developing the talent in our regions, developing more local regional IP. And so, Dale and the team at the Film Commission, we've been working with them on that. They visited the regions in many cases to meet with our regional filmmakers and talk to them about their career pathways, open to other areas of collaboration in future as well. In terms of how we differ, we work in a lot of similar areas, which is why we work together, but I see the RFOs as regional experts. So we live, work, play in our regions, and we represent almost every region in the country almost. We're locals, we're members of our community, we know our regions inside out, and if there's something we don't know, we'll probably know someone who does. So we've really got that regional expertise, whereas the Film Commission have that national expertise, that important link into the international production community, which is really important, and also the link into central government, which is important in the work we do. So that's why it's important for us to be working together.
Right. And do you have any other MOUs in place with any other agencies at the moment, like Tourism New Zealand or anything like that yet?
No, we've got some other partners, which I think we talk about in a minute, but no formal MOUs.
Right, okay. So when we talk about other partners, part of the discussion we had, it was around the importance of collaboration and how many other people there are in the industry that we need to make sure that we're working in with. So Mark, did you want to talk a little bit about guilds and associations and the importance of those other industry organisations that are part of the RFONZ?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, given the times that we're in, it's ever important that we do continue to work with other guilds and associations right throughout the country. Everyone that has expertise in different areas, they reach into different membership departments So, traditionally we have worked, especially in the talent development area and professional development, with a lot of guilds like WIFT and Script to Screen and SPARTA, on workshops and helping to co-present quite often workshops in our different regions. And we share that information with each other, and we certainly want the guilds to be able to do so as well. We work alongside the exhibitions, so film festivals across the country. When they visit our areas, we work in together with those. And also tertiary institutions as well, which definitely is a big part of encouraging the next wave, the future of talent coming through. So we work a lot with them to make sure that that we're giving them opportunities that we can, or we're at least introducing them to other people who can give them opportunities to develop not only their talent but their filmmaking expertise. And obviously we help those guilds and those members with reaching out beyond New Zealand, beyond the borders, if they're looking at travelling further afield.
It's a really good point, isn't it, around that education, because I think that's something that we're all recognising, this, how fast things are changing and how quickly can tertiary institutions kind of keep up with what's going on. So, Petrina, being from Christchurch as well, are you working in really closely with your tertiary institutions there around what's happening around the world, and same with you, Jade? Yeah.
Definitely. In fact, the University of Canterbury, many of you may have heard and read about their investment into the new Koawa, which is the digital screen campus. And that's a significant spend of 135 million, which says that, they are confident in building up that region in that sector. And it works so well with the ecosystem of what we're trying to do in Canterbury. So with the students, with the Screen office, and with UC working closely together, we're making sure that the output is aligned. So so that's a really big vote of confidence for our region through that.
Jade, how do you tackle that in your area, the education side of things?
So previously, Paula Jones, who was one of our board members, set up the Tohia program, which was ran alongside the Vegas TV series, and then I think it went on to Karako as well, where there was 20 in the first round, and then maybe possibly 10. This year was quite well. In the second round, where they were actually attached to the production. The only tricky part with that was that if you don't have a pipeline of work, they do great learning on set and they find their niche, because they get to move around the different areas. But then if there's not another job to go to, and if you're trying to keep them in region as well, it's part of our business that we're quite transient. The job is quite transient if you're working on sets and stuff like that. But if you're looking at your backyard, you need them to be able to go on to something else. And there were some funding changes with MB, because it had some funding from MB and that hasn't progressed again. But it's something that we're still trying to workshops, or whether we're creating something where we can go, like, these people are working in the region, and can we give a little bit towards them to be able to even go and spend a day, and then at least meet the people so that they can make the connections and help move forward with that.
That steady flow of production is really important, isn't it? I think it's what everybody is chasing, which leads me on to talk about attraction. So when it comes to international attraction, how does RFONZ activate on this? I mean, maybe Petrina, you could speak about this first. How do you promote the uniqueness of each region? I know you've been to a number of festivals, and how do you represent Canterbury?
So we're the first and only regional incentive, and I think the grant that was released 3 years ago, it's at the end of the 3-year cycle, but that was such a catalyst in proving that it worked to attract productions to the region. But that's a cash grant. In terms of other ways of attracting productions, of course, visibility is key, and just being visible at markets. We don't always have the funds for international travel, but that's why within RFONZ, we've broken ourselves up into groups of 3, and we keep discussing in terms of where can we go, what can we do, while pulling in the resources that we have. And of course, we always look towards the Film Commission in terms of their mandate is, when they go international, is there a way that we can be a part of that? Can we, and we've got the lookbook, we've got ways of saying, that we are visible. But I would say the very important part of attraction is visibility. I mean, we are competing with more than 600 film offices who are doing the same thing, reaching out to the same producer. So how do we stand out from that noise?
Absolutely.
Of course, New Zealand is beautiful and we would stand out,
Yes.
but we need to be visible and talk about it.
Absolutely. Mark, do you have a view on that around, how can RFONZ, activate and collaborate more in that area?
Yeah, look, I think from an attraction standpoint, it's interesting, and all my colleagues know this at RFONZ, and Philippa and your team are very aware of it. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And when everybody else is competing worldwide for people to come and shoot their production in their country, and they're offering various sorts of incentives and things like that, it's important to collaborate as much as possible. And this is kind of, in a sense, why we're here today, to talk about the Coopetition. I'm paid by Wellington NZ when I go overseas for the work that I do in attractions, but first and foremost, I'm a New Zealander, and that's the most important thing, is to represent who I am and the country that I'm from. And if Jade gets some work in Bay of Plenty, then that benefits us in Wellington. All ships rise together in that sense. And I think that has to be the way that we approach attractions in that term, is that we are always working together for the benefit of what we do in this country. And these are the discussions that we have on a monthly and a quite a regular basis around how we can support each other. There's a uniqueness in every different region, and so that can't be replicated.
Exactly.
The one really great thing about New Zealand, I think, is the expertise of our crew. We have fantastic crew here in New Zealand. They've been trained on amazing productions. We've got some great facilities in this country. And our approach to how we do filmmaking and how we make stuff is just so easy for internationals to come here and do that work. And I think that's our USP. And I think when I'm talking to people overseas, that's the sort of thing that I really want to, and I think collectively we really want to promote.
Absolutely. And I think I was really heartened to see us at Sundance earlier in the year, and a really good example of this in America is Montana and Utah. They have a fantastic working relationship. They're next door neighbours. They're very honest about what they can provide. They go to markets together. They're very visible together, and they work in with the production. So, hey, listen, that's not really going to work in for our area, but why don't you go to our next door neighbour, or we can collaborate on this. And there's lots of really good examples of that globally. And I think we've even discussed it between country to country, especially in Europe, where obviously things are a little bit closer together. It's getting to that point now where global collaboration is going to be really important, not just regional. What's good for one person is also good for the rest. I think as well, we might talk a little bit more about this later, but hooking in with the national tourism agencies is actually going to become really important, and we're seeing a lot of other countries doing that really well. And I think that's one thing that I'm seeing missing here in New Zealand specifically, is that there is not that collaboration with, the National Tourism Agency. And I wonder whether that's something that could be addressed with, where funding goes and things too. Because at the end of the day, like you say, when I go overseas, I work for ASCI, which is a global organisation, but I'm a New Zealander, and I still promote New Zealand and all of the regions of New Zealand. And it's the same for you, whether you're from Christchurch or Wellington. I think that's what's good about us Kiwis. Petrina, you did mention your grant, which we will come back to, but I wanted to know whether you could give us any examples of productions specifically that have benefited from interregional collaboration, because I know when we had our panel call, you had given me a couple of examples there.
Yeah, while we are seen as competitors, we really do collaborate. So I joined the office 2.5 years ago, and this was my first time working in a film office. I always had a producer's hat on. So I thought like a producer, and when I got inquiries asking me to help, and I was like, oh, shouldn't a location manager do that? And I have to be honest, I was always put up against a wall, and we were pitted against each other a bit. So I picked up the phone and I spoke to my colleagues, and they were so helpful, and they helped me understand how we can talk to each other, because initially the thought was we need to compete and take business away from each other, which is not always the case, because I would then advise somebody who's looking for a location that we don't have and connect them to a region that does have one. And for instance, there was an Indian production that came through, and it's the Indian film industry, which people know of. And they obviously had their mind set on a few regions. And while talking to them, Rotorua was one of those regions they loved. And Jade and I collaborated. We spoke. I went down to Rotorua and met with the producers. And of course, we wanted them to also film in the South Island. And if that didn't turn out the way I wanted, that's fine, because New Zealand was on the map for me at that time. And Jade and I were literally co-servicing this production. So every time Jade needed to understand something that was probably, a cultural, how do we navigate through this? And it could be tricky conversations. And I think it was easier for me to pick up the phone and navigate through that. So we've done that. And the production was here for 6 months, 5 months. And
I think they went and came back again.
Yeah, and they came to Christchurch for 3 days of filming. Yeah. So, I mean, so that's seriously the power of collaboration.
Yeah, and so Jade, can you talk a little bit more about the value of information sharing nationally? Because I think that's one thing I noticed when at Screen Auckland and being part of RFONZ is that sharing of information is so valuable.
Yeah, I mean, having not worked on a Tollywood production or a Bollywood production for that matter, it was great to have Petrina's experience on that. And they were a self-funded film that came in, and we needed to be able, and the areas they were looking at needed lots of navigation, and we. So be able to pick up the phone and say, can we have this discussion? Can you advise on this? That was phenomenal. But it's also the point of that, Kirsty from Screen Auckland, being able to pick up the phone and go, look, I've got a location manager that's looking for this. We don't have that. Is it something that you can do? So working across all of the regions and going, look, I know I don't have this in my backyard, but I know someone who's an expert in it, and I can hand over to them. They'll look after you, because we all look after the people who are coming to our backyard, and we know that everyone here and on the front row are all experts in their fields and their regions. So I think
and that's what the studios want too, don't they? It has to be easy.
They want to know as they move across New Zealand that they're going to get the same service everywhere, and we know as a collective that's what we can provide.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the important part is connecting them to the right person. Time is always of the essence when it comes to a producer. And yes, they want things yesterday, but if it gets delayed because you don't know who to connect them to, that can be damaging to that relationship. So I think that's important that we can just say, okay, this is something Jade or Mark can handle, so we connect them.
Go straight to the expert.
Yeah.
So as well as attraction, we've talked about another area of focus for RFONZ being sector development. So can we have some examples about sector development initiatives in your region? So Mark, did you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, in 2019, Wellington was made a UNESCO City of Film, which means that we have sort of a rubber stamp from the UNESCO in terms of the work that we've done. And actually, it's interesting, you think film in Wellington, you think of Lord of the Rings and Avatar and everything, but that actually wasn't the reason we got that. It wasn't for the big blockbusters. It was a lot of the mahi that we've been doing around sector development, encouraging diversity, and supporting people at a tertiary level through to what they're doing afterwards. And then like Māori Land Film Festival is a really good instance of that, where we've seen rangatahi come up through there and create some brilliant work and go on to careers as a result of that for the short time that's been running. So that we were given a pot of money initially from the council to be able to do some work for UNESCO, and with under that sort of banner. And Tanya, my colleague who's the screen manager there, was looking after that and extolling those virtues on a daily basis. And we supported a couple of films like Red, White and Brass, where we assisted with some placements for people who are coming up through the industry to be able to be on set and have experiences there. We do that through other means as well. I mean, the funding is ridiculously limited, but what we try to do is, again, like we do with collaboration here, is collaborate with our producers, with the people who are local to us, to see what we can do to try and lift up opportunities for people. Yeah.
Fantastic. Jade, have you got anything to add for your area around sector development yet?
Sorry, I was just thinking, we do all that as well. We collaborate a lot with the guilds as we can. I think funding in this area is probably our hardest piece, where we would like to be putting on more workshops, but it's less, we're moving now into a space, and I think we all agree with this, maybe, I might be wrong, that the workshops are great, but we want to be able to create pathways. And so finding those ones where it's not just making a connection, it's like, so how do I take this next step? How do I actually start making a living and doing this in the job? And so we're looking more in that, in our, looking ahead for the next year. So that's sort of more of our goal, is that if the money that we're putting into workshops, it would actually maybe be better if we can actually create a pathway where, and then we can build off that and see where that goes. Make more local as well. I guess, and all those filmmakers who live in Tauranga or Rotorua who wanting to make film, or Taupo, we cover quite a wide area, can be staying home, going home and see their kids, or working and staying local, I guess, and making those shorter films that they might not have had the time to do or the opportunity to do. Not everyone wants to move away from their backyard. So
exactly. Yeah. Kahli, what about you?
So in terms of like below the line skills training, we've same thing, partnering on workshops, but wanting to establish those, more sustainable pathways. We offer training grants to productions as well, to help them to bring on board trainees, because we know that can often come at additional cost to productions. In terms of creative development, we acknowledged several years ago that a story is more likely to get filmed in our region if it's written for our region. So really, tracing it back to the writers and where and how the scripts, where they come from. So for many years, we ran a Writers in Residence program, which we still do. So for any writers in the room with any projects that, are connected to our region, please do get in touch. We can help support writers to come to our region and be there for, up to a week. It's a beautiful region, so I'm sure people would love that. And, there's nothing better than actually being in the place where your script is set for inspiration, for research, for connections into the local community. So we've offered that kind of bespoke residency for a number of years. Recently, Film Queenstown Lakes partnered with Great Southern TV, Kathleen, to run a more formal writers' residency called Tahuna. So that having a production company partner on that was really integral to having a more formal residency where the writers actually were embedded in the community for 4 weeks, so it was a lot longer. There was connections into the industry, into what the market was wanting at the moment, and then the idea at the end of that residency, that retreat, was that the writers came up with original TV concepts based in Queenstown, in Tahuna. And then in saying that, we're also looking at developing our local filmmakers, the ones who are already based in the region and wanting to create content in the region. So we have a new program that we've partnered with Script to Screen on called Southern Pilots. Applications for that have recently closed, and that's focused on so filmmakers need to be based in Otago and Southland to be eligible for that, and the teams haven't been selected yet. I think that's imminent, and they will get to enjoy a 3-day, workshops and incubators that are going to be held in the region to develop local IP.
I was in Dunedin the other week. Stefan was telling me all about that. Sounds great. Petrina, we've got the Screen Precinct in Christchurch now. Is there anything else that you wanted to share around sector development in your region and what you're working with?
Quite a few, actually. And to be honest, that was another way of collaborating as well, because through the Screen Grant, and we have an industry body called Te Puna Mataro. Kim's the chairperson of Te Puna Mataro. And our Screen Grant allowed us to put aside some money towards that skill development and towards funding Te Puna Mataro. And they came up with a brilliant idea of the Waitaha Story Screen Incubator. And through the partnership with Script to Screen and Jackie, we developed and designed, was it a 6 months incubator? 3 sessions over 6 months. Including, exactly. And that was so amazing because the scripts were from the community based in Christchurch. They were telling local stories. That was creating local IP. And it was feeding back into the ecosystem of what we wanted to do in terms of getting these productions back to film. So yes, they'll be script ready. They'll go out, they'll find their funding, but they'll come back to Christchurch and Canterbury to film, which is where, if the Screen Grant does come back, is something that we can help them with. So that was, coming full circle with what we were trying to do. Apart from that, we do nearly a workshop partnering with the different guilds every month. So Helen and I are always sending out EDMs, and at times we actually think people are going to be like one workshop every month. But it's a great opportunity for, guests that are coming to our region to meet them. And often we've heard that, the South Island is not always on the radar of guilds. So this was a good way of bringing that back into conversation. And we did the mini Wananga as well, a whole day of workshops with guests from even, I think Alexander Swords was a part of it. So these are ways of building confidence, and also a great opportunity to just bring the community together, because a lot of things unravel when you're talking and meeting your own, your people. So
I think we've probably talked about a grant, but we've not really told everyone about it. We might skip to that so we can get that good news out. So we understand that Canterbury stood up a regional incentive. So do you want to give us a little bit of a rundown on how that happened and what that meant for the region?
I take no credit in this. This was my predecessor and the industry from Christchurch who really fought tooth and nail to make sure to get this across the line. The regional incentive was a 1.5 million grant across 3 years, which started from 2021 before I joined the office. And June is the last, it culminates the cycle. It was seriously the catalyst to attract productions to Christchurch across the 3 years, but the productions actually started from April 2022. And within the 1 year span, we had 11 productions, which was sometimes a good thing and sometimes a bad thing, because we had 2 productions come together. We didn't have the crew capacity, but that was a learning curve, because then we reached out to, the wider South Island region, and it was a good learning experience for the skill development of our crew, who then got to level up and learn on the job. And we may have a lot of workshops and talks and discourses, but I think the best way to learn is getting your hands dirty and being on set, which is what the Screen Grant did. Just to give you a context with the impact of that Screen Grant, I mean, for the 1.5 million, our return on investment was around 16 million. So it just did what it was meant to do. Having said that, I don't know how, everybody's going through tax cuts and everybody's going through, budget cuts. And we are sitting at a very critical point where we don't know if the Screen Grant is going to come back next year. And of course, the conversations with everyone who benefited from it is to put in submissions and to talk about how it helped their production. And honestly, we've also heard producers say that coming to Christchurch would have not crossed their mind had we not given them this cash incentive, because there was such a cost to getting crew and the accommodation that's required. So, yeah.
Every dollar counts.
Every dollar counts. And we did do well. So, it's a no-brainer for me. But
yeah, it's always coming back to that funding word, isn't it?
Yeah.
We talk about how do we create a more sustainable industry, in a general sense, not from a green perspective. And Mark, you and I had some discussions around that. You might want to share your views on that.
In terms of creating a sustainable
industry? How do we create a more sustainable industry? People need to understand their capacities, their capabilities.
Absolutely, yeah. Actually, we were talking personally beforehand about how burnout is a very real thing, because we all say yes to lots of things because we just want to make things happen. We want to encourage people to take opportunities up as much as possible. We're a team of 3 at Screen Wellington. We're all very small teams, and sometimes we overcapitalize in terms of the amount of promises that we make. But I think, to your point, Annie, yesterday when you were talking, I think it's the industry working together collectively that is going to help solve some of the very real issues with sustainability that we have.
Yes.
To me, there's no other way forward. Gone are the days of working in silos and putting up walls. We need to make sure that we all have the expertise collectively. We just need to be transparent about what we do, share the information, and give others the opportunity to jump on board as well. So from a sustainability point of view, that's what I would love. It's a very rose-coloured glasses. I know.
I have those glasses as well.
Yeah, but I just think that it's totally achievable if we are able to work together towards that shared vision. It's a lot harder to deliver on. I understand that, but I think by being willing to have the conversations and to be able to talk to the guilds and say, what do you need? What can we do? And it's not always about money. There's other resources that can be brought to bear that can assist in those ways.
And I think that we have a role as well from an AFCI perspective, and something that I picked up when we did this research last year is how underfunded everybody is, how under-resourced everybody is, how overworked everybody is, and how so many offices are paying thousands and thousands of dollars for things like location libraries, film permit apps, all of the software that all of these private sector businesses are making a lot of money off people who don't have money. So part of what we're doing with this digital transformation is trying to standardise those types of systems. So our vision is that we offer, as part of our membership, that eventually I would love for it to be free for a film commission to be a member, and we get the private sector to pay, is that you get your free location library, you get a free permit, film permit app, and a lot of these systems become part of our digital infrastructure. So that it also means that we can gather that data with integrity, with full transparency, feed it back to the regions, feed it back to governments, so that can help with workforce development. So I think right down to standardisation of systems is something that's going to help, sustainability as well, because there's no point us all fighting for a small amount of funding that's out there. And we see as well through the conversations that we have in our private chats with, AFCI, well, what film app are you using, or what location library, or, everyone's wanting to collaborate with each other. So I think that's the most important thing here. We also talked about the need for a national perspective and what role would a peak body play in giving the industry a unified voice, bringing individual agencies together, but having that, unified voice, particularly in government interactions. Does anyone want to comment on that?
And again, rose-coloured glasses, hear me out. The MB report that came out a few years ago, which, a lot of the feedback that came back from the industry was around a peak body, like the tourism industry have, that works across lots of different sectors within our industry, to be able to give us collective voice, whatever you want to call it, in a way. And I'm not saying that's how it needs to happen. I understand that there's a working group that's currently working towards what that might look like. So if I think about sustainability, I think it's our ability to be able to lobby at a government level, at a higher level in terms of what we need collectively. I think the film industry has an image problem sometimes from a public standpoint, because we're seen as a sexy industry that's taking lots of money away from everyone else. But we know that that's not necessarily the case,
and that we make lots of money, and that everyone in the industry makes lots of money.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, like
true.
Chris said, it's all red carpets and rosé when we go to Cannes or whatever, and it's not true.
No, come back and I'm sick for 2 weeks.
Yeah, we know that that's not true. We understand that the amount of work that people do in this industry is ridiculous. When you're on set, you're working 10 to 12-hour days. That's a problem. We probably need to look at how we do that, how we sustain that. So I think maybe there's a way of, if there is a peak body, and I'd be interested in the results of what this working committee looks like, that it's representative, and that we all have an opportunity to be represented at a national level, and we have a voice on what that looks like.
No, it sounds good. One of the things that I think came through as well was making sure that people really understand the value of working with a film office or a film commission, because I think sometimes that can get confused as well. So Petrina, did you want to share your views on, how do we help people understand the value of working with the film office, with the film commission?
Again, I think it's just knowledge of knowing we exist. Sometimes we have producers who don't necessarily need any help, but it's always nice to just connect in with us, because sometimes we can give you we can give you some advice on something that you probably didn't think of, because that, like Kahli said, it's our region. We know our region. We know the vendors there. We know where to get things. We can help. So all we ask for is that partnership. Even if it's an email saying, we're in your region, we're going to be filming here, we won't necessarily do the permitting. And just because you're not getting something from us and you say we don't need to, connect. But down the line, if you do, it's probably too late in the day for you. And then the onus is on us to rectify that, which I have seen quite a few times. On the talk with Lulu, which was talking about locations going Ori, I mean, we are that conduit. So it'll be great because we've got that relationship with those locations. We've got the relationship with the vendors. So if we've spoken to them probably 9 times more than you have, it's easier for us to go in on the 10th time and say, and request. So I would say just that partnership is what we're seeking.
It's really promoting you as that broader production partner, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even from the point of view, if you were in the Mana Whenua, I think, panel just before, it's like we have those connections with iwi. We might not know the exact right person, but we can go, okay, if you're in Tauranga and you want to film on the Mount, then this is who we can connect you with so that you can get a yay or nay, rather than having to do. So we've already done a lot of the work for the producers and anyone who wants to film in the region, and that's really important. It cuts down your time, saves your bottom line at a base level, and it also means that we're looking after everyone. That Mana Whenua talk was really important point of view, going, we're all here to look after each other. And if we do that in the correct way, then we're going to be able to continue that work. If we don't do that, it's going to create more problems and it slows the process down, and then it changes, I guess, the talk out, what's out there, what you're sort of saying of that. Where was I going with that? I lost my little train of thought for a second.
Jade, you were saying just call us. Like,
call us. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason we're up here today, wasn't it? Because we were all like, we'd need to have more visibility in the region. And I mean, we had a conversation yesterday that you'd have never heard, which was, oh, but you guys are funded by the New Zealand Film Commission. And you said you'd never heard that before. And I was like, well, that's what I get regularly. And they're like, oh, you've got lots of money. And it's like, actually, no, we work hard for our regions. We work alongside, but we need more visibility so we can help you more, do your productions more.
Yeah.
There's
Make your job easier.
There's a term in the science field now called nature positive, which is all about encouraging organisations, particularly large ones, to work in a way that is best for nature. But that kind of triangle of, what's best for nature, what is best for the people, and then what's best for the organisation. And, those things together can still make you profitable and still make you successful. And I think we should take that and call it culture positive, in a way that we actually work together in a sense and encourage people to be able to think about the land, think about the people, and the culture that we have and the diversity, and but still be able to operate successful, profitable enterprises.
Very similar to the values of conscious capitalism, isn't it?
Can I just add one thing? It seems simple, but we all love film as well. And so when I'm brought onto a project early on, it helps me get excited about the project that's coming to my region to film. I love knowing what the story's about. There's just that passion there, and you really do feel like you're a partner, and it just makes it so much easier to help when you're brought on board, rather than last minute, I need a permit, I didn't even know. Yeah, so and we all genuinely love film and storytelling, and then it also helps us when we're then in the stage of trying to promote the project after it's filmed, because we've been brought on board at the beginning and we're part of the team. So yeah, we always really appreciate that.
Our time's free. We don't charge the production.
That is an important thing to point out. We don't, apart from permit fees.
Apart from permit fees, but that's
services and advice free, which is part of the requirement of being a member of the AFCI. Is that your core services need to be provided.
Not for profit. We have different memberships for people that are for profit, but for a film commission or film liaison or film office, you need to be not for profit and endorsed by your local government. So we have some interesting cases where there's things that are not quite as they should be.
Just adding to that as well in terms of, the location fees and the permitting fees, because Christchurch hadn't seen so much of production in quite a while, it was quite a hiatus. And when the productions did come in, the permitting team sitting in council really did, bend backwards to make sure every producer got their permits, even if it was within 24 hours, 48 hours. So we really, were appreciative of that. And a lot of the times, the fees were reduced. They were cut down to practically nothing. And that was our way of saying, we want productions to come in. We want to help you because it's a learning curve for a permitting team that hasn't looked into film locations for a while. And this was a two-way street. We had producers understanding that they need to meet with us way in advance so that we knew those locations and keep in contact. We had roundtables to simplify the process. So there are a lot of ways where the film office tries to pave that way to make it easy and simpler, but we can only do that if we know of the production, you know.
Something a little bit more fun probably is what you've talked about, admiring each other's regions, or if you
we're so
you'd like
jealous
to
of each
steal
other,
something
yeah.
from somebody else's region. So if there's something about another region that you really admire or wish that you had, what would it be for you?
I would say Wellington's studios. I went into Lane Street and I was absolutely awestruck. And I did tell Mark, I'm like super jealous. I think it's going to take a few hours for it to go. But yeah, Mark, I'm after that.
Kahli?
I was told I need to say Matt Horrocks, who I can see down the back. I was told I need to say him, that I would steal him. But no, similar to what Petrina said, but I was thinking from an Auckland perspective, we would love to have studios in the South Island and have some sort of infrastructure in our region. So yeah, very envious of the regions that do have that purpose-built infrastructure.
Yeah. Jade?
Bit of everything, I guess. We'd like infrastructure, but I'd also like the pipeline that Canterbury has seen through the incentive. I'd like to be able to have an incentive for local productions as over and above, not over and above, but yeah, I guess a little bit over and above the internationals and stuff. That's great to get them in, but to be able to support our local filmmakers through a small incentive for locations, whether it be Tauranga, Rotorua, Taupo, or Apotiki, that might not be able to, that might not meet the thresholds of those higher funding realms, something like that. Yeah. So yeah, an incentive. And then of course infrastructure. Give us a studio.
Everyone wants a studio. Mark, what do you want?
I don't want a studio.
Another one.
Auckland has them as well, and they're great. And that seems to be the first question internationally when you're asked, you know, how many studios you've got, how big are they, where can we put our things? But also New Zealand is really good at making stuff work.
That's right.
So I think, you know, having a small incentive would be great to be able to help productions offset costs. It doesn't have to be an incentive. There's other ways of looking at it and cutting the pie up. So, but actually, I would probably just dig up the beautiful part of Queenstown and transport it to Wellington. Would be great. There's, you know, the South Island is beautiful. We know this. The air is different there. It's such a charming part of the world, and you know that. When we get people come to us, they're like, you know, oh yeah, so is Queenstown very far away? Well, it's not far. It's not far worldwide.
That's why you introduced them to me.
Sorry, that's when I introduced them to the car.
It's 4 flights away.
Are back-end systems integrated or duplicated? Would a unified organisational structure between offices create better governance and cost efficiency? I can probably answer that for you all, but yes, I think that, you know, that's one of the things we picked up through the survey with AFCI and just having my background working at Screen Auckland and being part of RFONZ and then going to America. Yes, there is a ridiculous amount of duplication going on around the world, and that's something that we are trying to address, and hopefully at the end of May we'll find out whether we've got this $1.2 million grant from Bloomberg Philanthropies. Please, everybody, pray for us because it will be absolutely life-changing. And it will be difficult as well, because I was in Berlin earlier in the year, and there's a crew company called Crew United. They've been in Germany 27 years. They have hundreds and thousands of contacts on their database. Do you think they're going to move over to mine? Probably not. But 95% of the rest of the world might move over to AFCI. So we have to look at this as a long game. We're 49 years old. There's at least another 49 years to come. So if we can help smaller regional film offices, such as Regional Film Offices of New Zealand, to reduce your fees or stop paying all of this money, absolutely. So, you know, yes, you can, in the short term, wait till the end of May. If we don't get this funding, then we'll deal with that down the track. But you can definitely be communicating about what you're doing, and we're trying to tell people not to invest too much money in these types of things at the moment either, just yet. One of the questions that came through is, given the size of our country and international competition, would it make sense to work on, say, 3 centres of excellence or focal points where infrastructure and facilities are developed to attract filmmakers and enable workforce development, instead of 8 tertiary providers developing expensive resources that may not be used to full capacity. Ireland is an example of this. So the sector is well served with relevant training, and trainees get to be hands-on learners. Does anyone want to comment
I
on
can
that?
speak to that. So I think it is important to note that while there are 11, 12 regions who are represented by a film office, some regions are quite reactive. Sounds like a bad word, but they just want there to be an expert there in the region to help productions when they need help. Not every single region is actively out there trying to become trying to replicate what Auckland or Wellington does, for example. It really is a matter of figuring out what is what are our USPs, what's the unique offering that each region can make to that New Zealand Inc. offering, and having someone who can be activated in a region. Not all regional film offices actually have someone working for them full-time as well, so we should have explained that a little bit more. So a couple of our regions, like Marlborough, for example, running the regional film office is a part of their economic development manager's job. So she's their Dorian, she's not here today, but she's an economic development manager who does film as a part of her job. So just because there's 12 RFOs, they're not all full-time. It can be a part of a bigger portfolio. I'm not sure if that's what the question was getting at, but it has been raised before as like, there are quite a lot of offices. Is that needed? But I think they all have a unique role to play, and it does,
It sounds like it's a national collaboration question. For our closing statement, given all the challenges that we're all facing for the future, how do you see the future, or how do you want to see the future of RFONZ? Petrina?
I think to continue doing what we have intended to do on the path of collaborating with each other, conversations, open communication, and attracting more productions to our regions. I think the only caveat there is I wish we had more funding to do that, because anything that requires marketing or visibility requires funds. And that's where I think as the regional film offices, we lack in. I would say funding. And funding's on my mind only as well because, for the screen grant as well, we're such a predictable state. And so the request out there is to everybody who's benefited from it to really, put in a submission to talk to people you do know and raise that voice because, that's really the need of the hour for our region.
Right. Thank you. Kahli?
For the future of RFONZ, I just would like to see the collaboration continue. I mean, I think it's quite a unique collaboration, and part of that is because it's been going on for so long. It's like there's a legacy there now, and it would be a shame to see it, change in any way. So in terms of, go backwards in any way. So I just would want to see the collaboration continue and strengthen.
Great. Jade?
Yeah, I can use the C word too. Collaboration. I think sort of leaning into what we're talking about before, and what would we like from each region, you could go, well, I'd like to see more of us collaborating on the fact that go, okay, well, you've got the studios, we've got the locations. You've got locations that maybe have some access issues, but we've got these that have got no permit fees, or we've got this. So when a bigger production does come to New Zealand, of substantial sort of that funding, that the love can be shared a little bit more across the regions. And I mean, some of them are just only going to be studio-based, so you can't really do much about that. But maybe at a higher level, it's if you're coming to New Zealand and you're getting this, then so much has to go into a smaller region, and that's not necessarily an RFONZ thing. But I think we're working quite collaboratively anyway, and finding those bits where what we don't have in ours, you've got in yours, and how we can just build on those more, and how we can sort of cross boundaries, regions.
Yep. Right, thanks, Jade. Mark, how do you want to see the future of RFONZ to wrap up?
Look, from my perspective, I think RFONZ is one of the only screen organisations in the country that has offices, I guess, in each region, and there's a strength in that. I would like to see that strengthen and evolve. And as Kahli was saying earlier, we're all sort of experts in our own regions, so that can be a really good conduit that we can continue with. And then I guess just sort of a wider statement is, as we're going through these troubling times, we're pretty used to it, but there has never been a greater demand for content than ever before. We know that. That's a fact. The problems we have are with financing, getting stuff up and delivering it, finding distribution. And again, it's that power of coopetition, that collaboration, that if we strengthen that, continue to strengthen that, then we make the pathway easier for content creators.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think, we can probably summarise our key messages to be the importance of a coordinated and collaborative New Zealand approach. So we know that collaboration is only going to enhance the attractiveness to filmmakers. We want to be efficient with our operations, of course, which will help us increase film production. We talked about the three main areas of collaboration being attraction, location access, and sector development for RFONZ. And we know that infrastructure, funding sustainability, and standardisation of service challenges, and perhaps the need for a peak body and giving the wider industry a voice are going to be really important. Please give my panellists a round of applause, and thank you so much.
The Big Screen Symposium 2024 was presented by Script to Screen. We gratefully thank our event partners, the New Zealand Film Commission, Images and Sound, New Zealand On Air, and Te Mangai Paho. Voiceover is by Jamie Irvine and the music is by Poddington Bear. You can read more about these speakers at our website, www.bigscreensymposium.com. This podcast is brought to you thanks to generous support from Images and Sound.